what's going on, boys and girls? We're gonna have another reaction video. This one is, I believe, it is called "Truth About Switching to Linux." For me, I don't know how this video is gonna play out. Could be good, could be bad. I'm expecting bad because that's generically how most of these videos tend to go. So, with that, let's roll into this video.
Good evening, YouTube. This is Mark Yates, and today's topic is 3 honest reasons not to switch to Linux. Without further ado, reason number 1. Reason number 1 is oversaturation in too many distros. There's a major problem in the Ubuntu Debian-based distro world where we have so many copycat distros, and it's a real shame. It seems very few of all of these Ubuntu-based derivative distros do very little to separate themselves from just running vanilla Ubuntu. And unless the distributions are running in a way, are doing something very unique and different than stock vanilla Ubuntu, whether that be Ubuntu Mate or Xubuntu, there's not much reason to run those distros. What I would like to see is more developers join up on really popular mainstream distros and work together to make those Linux distributions even better than they are now. These copycat distros don't do enough to really be called a full distribution in many people's eyes. Another problem that we have is analysis paralysis. This occurs when there are far too many distributions to choose from. Think if you were a customer going into a Staples or Office Max or what have you in order to select a printer. I am in the market currently for a new printer. I know the brands I like that have the most good models and models that I know and trust. Those are Epson, Brother, and Canon. Well, if you were to go in and you ask the store clerk, I need a new printer. I know these brands and I would like a Brother printer. And the store clerk responded, well, sir, we have 55 different Brother printers. Which of these printers do you want? I would feel overwhelmed, as would any customer. And I would be much more likely to walk out of the store and stick with, hint, hint, Windows, stick with what I already know and have and I'm used to. So, that's a problem. Reason number 2, I would like.
Okay. So oversaturation of the market. You know how often this thing comes up? It is so annoying and so untrue. Somebody going into Linux, I would never recommend going into it. Like, if somebody does not set the system up for them, or they do not buy hardware that already has a Linux OS installed, honestly, unless you're a tinkerer, you're usually not going to change your fucking operating system. Just going to say. So there's a whole model of fucking support around it. You either got some guys supporting you because they installed it, or you have a company like Dell or System 76 supporting you because you bought a fucking machine from them. So the oversaturation stuff, and to say that none of the work that the quote-unquote copycat distros that you talk about use is kind of wrong, because a lot of that stuff does trickle down in various ways to the other core projects, because the core distribution has its own set of goals and ambitions. All these side projects have different aims and goals. Bodhi Linux, as an example, goes for a minimalism desktop and all the other stuff that goes with it. But with Moshka or Enlightenment 17, whatever you want to call it, and it goes for minimalist and lightweight but fully functional. Ubuntu doesn't go for that. They go for a different demographic. These side distributions are all aimed at different things and different people. That's why they're different. That's why there's so many of them. A lot of them are niche products. They're gonna happen. As an example, I use /Linux as my daily driver. Go look it up. It is not a normal distro. It does very different things. But the simple fact of the matter is, a lot of the work does get trickled down into either the core project or the core based distro. It's just some shit that a lot of the times just isn't seen or known about. So it doesn't, like, from an end user perspective, you're not going to fucking see it. It's really that simple. So let's get into reason 2.
I'd like to discuss our application incompatibility. This occurs most likely for creative professionals running Adobe Creative Cloud or Adobe Creative Suite applications, or possibly other video editing applications other than Adobe Premiere Pro, such as Sony Vegas and others. The truth of the matter is, albeit many of these creators may want to switch to Linux, they're not willing to sacrifice the time in learning alternative applications on Linux that do the same thing but may not be up to par to the quality they're used to with their Windows native applications. That's something to consider. They have to feed their families and put food on the table, and they have to provide for themselves, so they can't afford to lose days of work to learn these new applications.
I'm assuming that's your point altogether.
A third reason
Oh boy, do I have a point to make here. Regardless of platform, you cannot make one change without expecting other things to change in the process. I'm trying to be very nice about this. You cannot go from iOS to Android and expect shit from applications specifically built for iOS to work on Android, and applications specifically built on Android to work on iOS. They're not going to function the same. They're not going to be designed the same. So why the fuck are you going to think that when you switch your fucking core operating system on a laptop, desktop, notebook, whatever? That is just people not willing to understand that one change means other things have to change. That's more of a people problem and not so much a fucking distribution problem or application process problem. Windows, I don't use KDN Live. I use Corel Video Studio. Mac OS, I use iMovie. On here, I use Kden Live. It's all different. I understand, and other people have to, like, get into technology specifically, have to understand. You make one change, a lot of things change. If you change your core working base, your entire fucking canvas gets blown the fuck up, and stuff changes. You have different tools and different uses and different things. So that means learning all those new tools. And if you're not willing to change them, why are you looking to change something that is so critical as an operating system to your workflow? That's not smart. That's being moronic and fucking stupid. So let's get into your third point.
I would like to discuss reason number 3 would be device driver trouble. Albeit it has gotten far better over the years, Linux has made leaps and bounds in this area. However, there are certain NVIDIA or AMD graphics cards that are either way too new, brand new, came out yesterday maybe, or way too old to be supported by the Linux kernel. Thus, there are not good working drivers, or there are no drivers at all, available for your new graphics card or perhaps your new printer. With printing, you can go on openprinting.com and get native Linux drivers for other printer models other than HP. Also, modern Linux distributions have made it very easy to install a Hewlett-Packard printer on Linux. In fact, it's easier to install in Linux an HP printer than it is in Windows. However, like I say, openprinting.com, you need to check and see if your printer is supported on openprinting.com or the CUPS platform, which stands for Central Unix Printing System, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Central Unix Printing System. If your device that you bought brand new is not compatible with Linux, that's really going to put most people off, especially if it's a device like a printer, scanner, copier device that is so integral to their work. The fourth and final reason I'd like to discuss are games.
Oh, again. Oh, man, do I have stuff to say? Okay. Printer drivers. Drivers in general. Do you remember Windows Vista? How much shit worked on that? Not a whole lot. Because it was on the manufacturers to provide driver updates for shit that they had already made that they didn't provide for people upgrading from XP to Vista. And a lot of shit didn't work. That does not fall on the OS. That falls on the device manufacturer for not supporting the OS. There's a big fucking difference. I am not going to buy something that I find out that doesn't work. There's got to be the Tux logo or it says fucking supports Linux or whatever, or I know it's in the kernel. You have to research your shit. You cannot just go to random Joe Schmo off the... This is the thing I hate about people who buy technology and don't understand it. You have to research your shit. You can't just go onto a website, click buy, and call it good. That's not how it works. And we, as technology people and technophiles, or whatever you want to call us, have to understand and teach people that that's a bad habit. Oh, yeah, this $10, whatever, printer or whatever is going to work great. No, it doesn't fucking work that way. It doesn't even matter if it's on Windows. I've had shoddy drivers from cheap products on Windows just as much as I've had great products on Windows worked as well. It's a 50-50 split. It's just it takes research. We have to help change the habit of how people understand shit works. So you can't put the onus on the OS, or in this case the kernel. I'm sorry, GNU people. You have to put the onus on the hardware OEMs and the hardware ODMs and the hardware manufacturers that they are not supporting the platform. And that is their fault, not the OS. And that's a bullshit reason, and you know it, but you're still using it. And I'm calling bullshit on that.
Games. Now, Proton and Steam will be in a separate video, so I'll leave that there. However, as a Windows gamer who has their nice gaming rig set up, they're typically going to run their Windows games in Windows. That is what they're used to, and that is the platform they work best on. If a Windows game happens to be developed for Linux, you're pretty much going to have to find that in Steam. If you don't use Steam and you use another platform, then you're right back being bound to Windows. There are games that are native to Linux that are developed for Linux, but Linux is kind of an afterthought in most developers' minds because it lacks the user base that Windows does. Therefore, they don't want to spend time and money and efforts into time, energy, and their money to develop for Linux for gaming. So that's something to consider. Crossover and Wine, Proton are things that can help with this. However, with Wine and Crossover specifically, those tend to not always work the best. There are certain titles, game titles, and applications that Wine and Play on Linux Crossover will work very well with. However, you have to consider it's a major undertaking, as what Wine and Crossover is a compatibility layer for Windows to be able to run Windows applications and games inside Linux. Linux is a completely different animal to Windows. So it's a major undertaking, and you've got to understand not all titles or games are going to play well or play at all. So that is something to consider as well. This has been 3 honest reasons not to switch to Linux. If you like the video, like it up, subscribe if you want to see more. Feel free to leave a comment below. As always, this has been Mark Yates. Peace.
Okay, games. Games are a thing. You are correct. Different platform. Again, I don't go to PlayStation expecting Xbox games to work. I don't go to Xbox expecting PlayStation stuff to work. Onus on the developer to make it cross fucking platform. Build it that way by design. Simple as that. Again, I have 555 games. Not all of them play on Linux. And I understand that. I know that I'm going to a different OS. It's cool that I have, 200 plus games that work on Linux, but I know I'm not going to be able to play everything. A Mac user does not go to Windows expecting GarageBand. Your expectations of software have to change with the platform. And if you don't understand that, don't change platforms, because you're not willing to change your thought process, and you're not willing to be open to the fact that you have to change. I'm not saying that as a technology guy. I'm saying that as a human being. If you want to initiate change, which is completely awesome, you have to be willing to understand that there's going to be more than just that one change. And sometimes core things that you change affect a lot more. Doesn't matter. That's just life. And when you bring into the digital age, or digital technology and all this other stuff, a lot of things are going to change. And that's just something that humans don't like doing. And they just got to accept that if you change one thing, something else is probably going to fucking change. That's just reality. As far as your reasons, I still say calling it weak sauce is an understatement. I don't think they're good reasons at all. A lot of it's, you're putting the onus on the OS when it's external factors. And I'm not saying Linux doesn't have its problems. Fucking look at our sound system and all the other stuff. There is plenty wrong with Linux, don't get me wrong. But the stuff you're nailing on, it's not. That's surface level stuff that, with a guiding hand, you can completely go over. And as you dig into it, as you dig into Linux and the open source community and all this other stuff, if you find the right community, they're going to be willing to help. You can dig down deeper and start exploring XFCE, Plasma. Oh, Michael will yell. Plasma, different things of GNOME, and all this other stuff. You'll start learning as you go. Because at the end of the day, what's a Windows power user? A person who just learned all the ins and outs of fucking Windows. Same with a Mac user. What's a Mac power user? Somebody that learned the ins and outs of Mac OS. What's a Linux power user? Same deal. They learn the ins and outs of the operating system. It's just what you're willing to accept. Because with change, things are going to be different. So, as far as this video, I'm calling it weak sauce. But, I don't know. You guys know what to do. Rate and subscribe. See you later.